What if you made one decision in your MSP that could change everything? You don't have to feel trapped in the business or overwhelmed by constant demands with no clear direction or future. You're going to learn today. Tyler Sanders, co-founder, Pace Technical in Toronto, how he was able to make changes in leadership, let go of control, and build a business that really thrives without him in the day-to-day. Welcome again. This is episode number 4 of the Founder's Journey, and I am pleased to have an amazing MSP operator and somebody that I am grateful to call a friend, Tyler Sanders. Tyler, how's it going, brother?
Thanks, Kev. It's going great, man. How are you?
Dude, I am doing awesome. Thanks for joining me today. Thanks for coming on the program. And ultimately, thanks for taking the time to share your story with everybody out there that's running an MSP. This is a little passion project of mine that has really become near and dear to my heart. We get an opportunity to share success. We get an opportunity to share our challenges and some of our struggles. And I think it's important for every other MSP owner out there to understand that, hey, they're not in this alone. There's hundreds of people that have gone through the same process. We're all on that same journey. And hopefully I'm just looking for 1 to 2 MSPs that can grab a little bit of nuggets out of this conversation today. That's going to help shave off, 12 months, 24 months of their life so they can just really get to the good. So welcome. Tyler, you run Pace Technical. So kind of give us the little background on you and Pace Technical.
Sure. I can go right back to the beginning and back in the early 2000s, how I got started with all of this, just acting as an independent contractor, getting some, project work. I was doing a lot in the early 2000s with Citrix. So we'd come in, deploy a Citrix solution, and then saw the opportunity after that where they didn't have any idea what they were going to do to support it. We know how problematic a Citrix environment can be.
Citrix is great.
The problems that we had back then still exist today. So, 25 years later and stuff, and there's still all kinds of printing problems and these things. So it was almost like the perfect business model because we deployed this solution knowing that all kinds of things were going to break after, and the client would say, well, now what? They maybe have an internal IT person or something who had no idea how to support Citrix or anything about it. So saw the opportunity where we could come in and continue to work with that client, and just thought, hey, this is an opportunity for recurring revenue, made up some pricing models. And I got lucky in the fact that said, I'm going to just charge per user per month. And I think the rates would even stand solid by today's market standards. So was charging a premium to have us around and support it. And continue to kind of develop that way. It just kind of a little bit happened out of luck, but also making some good decisions and some good business ideas, and started, doing Citrix with law firms. And, that just turned into a big referral base so that we were continuing to grow just organically in the beginning. We'd, drop Citrix in at one law firm and they'd refer us out to, their close competitors, ironically enough. And we'd go in there and sell them, a build and then support model after that. And in 2008, I formed Vertex with the sole intent of selling managed services. Really, it was a new concept back then, but made a lot of sense from a business perspective.
Yeah, looking back at that 2008, man, the MSP landscape has definitely changed. But what were some of the challenges that you ran into early on when you just decided to go all in on this MSP model?
Yeah, I was, really immature, I guess, as a business owner, business leader, and I thought, the most important thing was I sell new accounts, and then I could just hire somebody and they would do the work, and I'd sell more business and hire somebody and they would do the work, and, kind of built this up to a team of, maybe 8 to 10 people. And it was, just culturally a disaster. Like, I was not putting any attention into our employees. I was so focused on what do I do to make the client happy? People are lucky that I've just given them a job, really. And my focus was all external on the clients and really putting very little focus on, nurturing the team, really focusing there. And, it wasn't until much later on that I realized that you flip that around and you put all of your focus, all of your effort and attention into your team. And that's how you end up having happy clients. It doesn't work the other way. As much as you try to, satisfy client requirements and really, focusing externally on making them happy. If your people aren't happy, they can only fake it for so long, right? So, they're dealing with support problems all day. They're dealing with, law firms, irate attorneys and stuff. If they're not happy with their job, it's not going to be a good outcome with the client.
Yeah. So going to an employee first model versus a client first, I think, that's something that, we've all struggled with. Myself personally, running my MSP out of California, super hyper focused in on delivering amazing service to the clients, always put the client first. And at one point in time, we actually had a core value that was customer, company, self.
Completely backwards. Just flip that around and it worked.
It was backwards. I mean, the intention and spirit of the core value wasn't that the customer's first, but the way it was ordered definitely took a lot of explaining. You have a partner in the business. Why don't you kind of share a little bit about that dynamic, what that's like to not go it alone, and maybe just high level, real quick, division of labor responsibilities so everybody can have an understanding.
Yeah, I've gone through several partners transitions over the years. And, one of the big breakthroughs we had in changing this business model of, clients first, employees secondary, worked with Tony Williams from the True Methods group and, had him come in to do one of the, profits acceleration programs, boot camps. And the first thing he identified was you've got, a really toxic culture, you've got toxic clients and problematic partner too to go along with it. So this is, back in early 2010, 11, maybe something like that. And the exercise really was you need to figure out how many toxic employees you can get rid of and toxic clients to balance this out. So you need to, clean up your culture, get rid of all of these bad seeds that you've got. And at the same time, get rid of the clients that are bringing your team down also. So it was this balancing act of, okay, if we need, we have 5 toxic people in our employee base and we've got 7 toxic clients. It was, really, cleaning up shop on both sides of it. So we ended up taking a huge step backwards, but that gave us the foundation and the platform to really build off. And we just completely accelerated from that point on. And that's where I turned my attention to developing a really strong team and making sure that that's where all the focus always went, and being more selective in the clients that we took on and really, standing up to the boundaries that we needed to have with our clients also to protect our employees and just make sure that our clients really understood that we were more focused on making sure that our employees were happy so that we could in turn, make them happy, and we weren't going to stand up to, people that didn't respect our team.
Yeah, lots to unpack there, right? So let's kind of start with one of the key things that you dropped in there. You mentioned Tony Williams, and every person that I talk to, every successful MSP, myself included, goes through a Tony Williams boot camp, right? The Profit Accelerator boot camp from Tony is absolutely phenomenal. Obviously, I'm not paid by Tony to say that. It just is what it is. You talk to anybody that's been able to grow and scale. Tony comes in there, looks at everything, smacks you around, tells you all the hard things that you already knew you had to do. And now, because Tony tells you, you go out and you do most of it. And then you get dynamically different results. And Did you go through Tony twice, or were you one of the very fortunate people that only had
We
to have
could
one
have gone
engagement
through
with
it twice. We only went through it once with him. But to your point, I mean, some of it was obvious things, but we needed an objective outside party to tell us and hold us accountable to it. So I know Tony, part of it was he interviewed a number of our employees, kind of understood what was going wrong and where we stood culturally. And then he made his list and said, okay, by this date, you need to get rid of these people because you're never going to have a healthy culture if you keep these people around. You got a few really bad seeds in your company and you've got to deal with that. And I know you have some bad clients out there too, because I'm hearing it from your employees, some of the stories, and you've got to clean up that. And he pretty much gave us a date. And the unfortunate thing was the timing of it, that the date was December and right around the holiday season, but we had to make these changes so that we could start off the new year with a clean slate. And I don't think we would have, maybe at some point we would have come to these conclusions on our own, but it certainly would have prolonged the inevitable there. And having that accountability where we were checking in with him weekly and him telling us, did you do it? Did you do it? How many of these people are left? How many of these clients are left? What's the plan? And I knew I could not get up in front of him for another call and not have done the things that we committed to doing. So a big part of it was the accountability and just having sort of an outside, objective, almost board member guiding us in the direction we knew we needed to go, and just committing to it.
Yeah, and Tony, it's kind man, super, super brilliant, and he's just got a way of communicating with you at the right level so you understand this has got to get done. There's no choice. You also had to get rid of some of your clients. So what was that like? For me, I loved monthly recurring revenue, and every dollar of monthly recurring revenue. I mean, there's terms for it that we'll use. Not going to say it, but I loved MRR so much that I didn't want to let go of any bad clients. And that, for me personally, that bit us in the butt more than one time. What was it like for you to get rid of those clients, and how did that help change and shape the culture of your MSP?
It was equally as hard, if not harder, than getting rid of bad employees. Like to your point, MRR, it's so hard to get new clients and to get MRR, and you're forecasting kind of built this whole structure around the amount of recurring revenue you have. So it's very hard to get rid of them. But the advantage we had at this time was I knew that, okay, if we're going to get rid of 40% of our staff, we can get rid of 40% of our clients, because now we're, balanced out and stuff. And I couldn't just get rid of 40% of the staff and keep our client base. So we were able to kind of look at the numbers and play out, okay, so if we have this many people left, then we only have capacity for this many clients, this many users, and just had to pick them off and really take a leap of faith there, saying that, we know we're better off without these clients. How good will it feel without these clients? But yeah, you get addicted to the MRR, and your whole business is based on this recurring revenue. So it was hard. But it was by far the best thing. We would have never, as much as we did internally, even in, getting rid of the toxic employees we had, these clients would never have treated our employees the way that we needed them to be treated, so that we could say that we had, that we took care of our people and we really cared about our team. It was just contradictory.
Yeah. So you talked about some of the math, right? So when you're looking at scaling, how did you structure your team and your processes to kind of manage that growth? Now, you shared with us like how you shrank the business in order to match the revenue, but high level, what did you look at? What kind of frameworks were you working from, and what is that? How does that play out to make it easier for you as an owner?
It does almost become a math problem. So what helped us so much, I mean, I mentioned the Tony Williams side of it. This is going to sound like a True Methods commercial, but it very much was peer group and True Methods having this structured blueprint. So we knew if we had this many clients and this many users, if we're doing things correctly, here's the math. You need this many support people, this many centralized services, this many VCIOs, this many TAMs. So we could just, always do that multiplication or that calculation based on where we were and how many people. And we stayed very true to that structure as best we could. I mean, service desk, sometimes you've got to get a little heavier on to make sure that you'd love to hit these numbers, but especially when you're smaller, if all of a sudden somebody on support is sick and somebody's on vacation, you're putting yourself in a real difficult situation with backlog, and you may be trying to catch up for the next 2 to 3 weeks and get into this, damage control mode with clients. So we always in the beginning had to kind of, be a little heavier in the numbers on support people. But otherwise, we could stay, very structured in how we calculated out the number of people to the number of clients.
No, that totally makes sense to me. For people that aren't a part of True Methods, this is in no shape, way, or form a commercial for True Methods. But for myself, for Tyler, for everybody that's been on here so far in Founder's Journey, True Methods has been a huge part of our success, and specifically the influence that we've had from Gary Pica. Right. So let's talk about that real quick. You mentioned Tony Williams, and the big thing with Tony was accountability and looking at peer groups. Peer is another level of accountability, right? And we had to show up to these meetings quarterly basis, had to have our numbers in, had to understand exactly what was going on in our business. And we had to be prepared to explain, what are we going to do this quarter in order to make sure that something was improved? So kind of back us up a little bit. You joined True Methods back in 2016. So what was that journey like for you in the business?
Yeah, all the things you just outlined. I mean, the accountability is really important. You can hold yourself, somewhat accountable, but you can always make up excuses to justify why this week you didn't do something, you didn't hit the numbers, you didn't hit the activity goals that you set out. So having to stand up weekly in front of your peers on a weekly call and kind of go over some of that, especially on the sales side of it, and then quarterly in person where you're presenting, your financials and other metrics in the business. You want to be doing the things that you committed to doing, and you want to show well in those meetings. And it creates also a very competitive atmosphere, even though it doesn't necessarily feel like that. If you're a competitive person and you see somebody doing better, it's the motivation to kind of hit those goals and those numbers. And I remember even in the first peer group I was in, after a few years there, I started to kind of reach the top in terms of sales in that group and profitability. And I need to move into a group where I'm sitting at the bottom of that group, and I'm this small fish in this big pond of people that are selling way more than me, more profitable, much bigger in revenue. And within a couple of years, started working my way up there, just because part of it's the belief too, seeing what other people are doing. I know a lot of our pricing came from when somebody else would go from 150 to 160 a user to 170, and we said, "Oh, it's shit! We can start charging more. We're in a good market. We're in Toronto, and any market, it's this belief system and sort of what True Methods teaches you also in creating your differentiation and your value. So a lot of it is the accountability, and then also the competitive nature that if you want to get better and you're seeing others that are around you getting better, you don't want to fall behind. So it gives you that push.
So looking at the metrics, what were some of the key things that you were tracking to make sure that, you were, progressing or you were winning, from that competitive spirit? Just high level, what were you looking at on a monthly and a quarterly basis?
I think, one of the biggest changes that happened in our business was when we put together an annual budget forecast. So what we would do is in November of every year, we'd put together, what is the upcoming year going to look like from a financial perspective? And it was almost like an output of the P&L, but we'd be mapping it out for the upcoming year, so that we would say, in the Mendoza line there, we set it at 20%. That was it. Like, that was the break even point for us.
20% net profit.
That's right. So everything, that whole forecast was built around that. That was almost like we just looked at it as zero. Like if we go below there, we're losing money. So we would project out for the entire upcoming year, what we were going to do from a sales perspective, what month that revenue, that new logo revenue would come in. You have to put in, what projected churn might be. And then going back to this structure of, we know if we're, servicing this many users and this many clients at this much revenue, we're going to need these people. So then we put in the placeholders that, okay, we're going to, close 2 more deals that are going to be 80 users. We're going to need to hire somebody on support. So it was meticulously mapped out for the upcoming year, exactly, month by month, where we were going to be from, tools costs, revenue, recurring revenue, percentages of project work from recurring revenue. And we got very good at this, and we lived and died by that forecast. So sometimes you get a feeling like, oh, I feel like we should hire this person or we should buy this tool set. If it wasn't in our forecast, we wouldn't do it. We just, like I said, we have to stay true to this forecast, unless there was some serious anomaly that was coming, or we projected out that this bigger client was going to come. Maybe we'd have to get ahead of it a bit, but otherwise, that's it. And we stayed 20%. We were there quarter after quarter, year after year. And it was always amazing at the end of the year when we'd look back and say, how did we do against the forecast? We'd be within a few percent. It was unbelievable how close we were to those original projections. And then you're looking at it on a month by month basis. If you have a deal that's closing sooner, okay, now we need to back up when we're going to hire. So you just, again, it becomes this math problem where you're really looking at the numbers and running the business and making decisions by the numbers.
Yeah. And you say it now, let's be real, right? Like, it's been 9 years, almost 10 years of you looking at this stuff. I think really one thing that sets you apart is, level of discipline. There's a lot of people out there that, put together a plan, but aren't really disciplined at the level that they need to be in order to execute on that plan. So let's not take that for granted. The other part of it is the amount of time that you spend in peer. I was in peer for a little bit longer than 10 years. And for me, it took a long time to get really familiar with and have a deep understanding of the math and the numbers that we were using to run the MSP. But it's funny, like, you and I were just texting this week and we were what were we texting? I mean, all the BS and the funny stuff aside, we were texting just simple MSP math. Like, hey, how many clients can each TAM manage, or how many clients can each VCIO? And then we had our good buddy Miles chiming in, and he's going, yeah, well, we can get a little bit more juice out of this squeeze if we look at it this way. So it's funny, even 10 years later, we still talk about the same math that is ultimately simple.
And some of those concepts and principles have not changed. So I was just at the Kaseya event, and Gary Pico was doing a presentation on the 4 blocks and the role of TAM and VCIO, and it's, and the chocolate cake. And it's more or less the original slides that we started with, and it still holds true today. And a lot of that math still holds true today too. So while some things have changed and evolved, those core concepts and those core foundations of ratios and stuff are very close to what they were over a decade ago.
No, it is so true. And like, if you look at what's really changed in 10 years, like cybersecurity at the forefront of everything that we do. So we've got whole different sets of teams and process and tools that just didn't exist before, especially when you and I both started. The cloud is everywhere and everything now at this point, but the lighthouse in it all is that simple math that was shared with us through peer. So it's awesome to see that we're still talking about it even today. And if you're just joining, you're just watching, you're just getting engaged with peer, give it some time, right? Like, look at these numbers, look at what you have to report on a monthly or quarterly basis. Pick 2 or 3, maybe 5 of those numbers and just really do a deep dive on it and figure out, okay, well, what do these really mean? And how do these levers impact the business? And that's how you're going to get to this level of command that obviously Tyler has. So
And you mentioned business disciplines. I mean, business disciplines are so important. You need to be, you need to put meeting dates aside and actually show up, even if it's a meeting by yourself, show up for it and understand like what is your, 3-year projection? What's your 1 year? What are your quarterlies? What are the milestones that you need to be doing to hit those quarterly goals and stuff? And you need to be realistic in what you lay out there. And then you need to be disciplined in prioritizing those. There's always a million distractions that come up in any business, especially in MSP, and all the reasons why you can't get to, doing these things that are going to move the business forward because of the reactive stuff going on and the distractions. You've got to somehow find a way to carve out the time and really stay focused and disciplined with that, because that's the only way that you're really going to, progress and improve. And you see, just setting out quarter after quarter, year after year, you look back and it's unbelievable the progress you make if you're, really staying true to these business disciplines.
Yeah, you mentioned a planning process. What did that look like for you and Vertex, Tyler? Did you go through a structured process? Were you following some sort of framework? Did you have outside help with your business planning? Share with us kind of like what was your secret in the beginning and kind of where you ended.
In the beginning, we kept it very simple. We'd, project out, like I was saying, sort of a 5-year, 3-year, 1-year quarterlies, and just focused on doing that. And then as we started to grow and mature, we adopted the EOS framework, so red traction, and started to, quasi implement the EOS model. And then we saw some development there and that it was really helping us, and hired an EOS implementer, worked with an EOS implementer for a year and a half or something. And that's where we now built out a leadership team and started to share goals and rocks, not just at the leadership level, but, a bigger leadership level, and then also departmentally. And that's when we really started to, gain traction, like the name of the book, right? Is that's what you need to build this traction, and started to really see things developing and progressing, and getting, developing a company vision and getting everybody rowing in the same direction and stuff. It made a big difference, but you don't need that to get started. I mean, just getting some stuff on paper and just sticking to it. Don't let it change throughout the quarter. I remember in the beginning, we'd see some new shiny object or something that would, we could rationalize in our mind why we're going to drop what we set out as our quarterly goals and change them to something else. And then you don't get anything done, and you're just kind of all over the place. So really staying structured on that. Even with business ideas, there were a lot of things that came along over the years where it didn't really fall into being a managed service provider and the way that we delivered our services. And it was easy to think, hey, we could make some money and kind of go against the grain and do something different here. We resisted the temptation because we felt that would be distracting from the core things that we knew we needed to really get good at in building a proper MSP. And I'm thankful we did, because I've seen a lot of people do that over the years, saying, hey, there's this, different revenue stream somewhere we can make some money. It's going to distract us for a year, but we'll make some money. And then they're further behind after that. And I've rarely seen it ever work out.
So the moral of this entire story is, if you have a book on your bookshelf like Tyler does, I can see it right there. Don't just use it as a prop. Actually read it and then apply the topics that are in there.
Yeah, another great one, traction and rocket fuel. So with my partner, Mark McRae, as we were developing, Vertex and building this business up, we were kind of both running ops. We were kind of both DCIOing. We were both doing sales and stuff. And rocket fuel gave us that perspective on who was going to be a visionary and who was going to be an integrator. And we got lucky in the fact that I read it first and I'm like, well, I'm clearly a visionary. I'm not an integrator. And that's why so many things have been going wrong, because I got to get out of the role of integrator. And Mark kept saying, I'm a visionary. I'm a visionary. I'm like, I'm not so sure. Read the book. And I wasn't leading him into thinking he was an integrator. And he read it. He's like, I am an integrator, much more than a visionary. So we just got really lucky that it worked out that way in our partnership. And then he became the COO and was solely in charge of our operation. I got out of his way, and I was the visionary in terms of, how we were going to grow, building out these forecasts, these budgets, developing sales, focused on sales and the business disciplines and really running the business. And that was the next major breakthrough that we had in our business.
That's huge, right? Like kudos to understanding what you're good at, right? And having the humility to be honest with yourself and say, hey, this is something that I'm really not so good at. Mark, I know really well. I think for people watching this, he is the Canadian Lou Ferrigno. Don't ever challenge him to an arm wrestling competition. He will crush you. Looking at sales, give us an overview. What did your sales engine look like? How did it start? How did it progress? And what was some of the magic sauce that you were able to sprinkle in there?
In the beginning, we got lucky. So much came from referrals. And I hear smaller MSPs even today saying, oh, we don't really have a mature sales engine because we get so much through referrals. And that's great. I mean, you do always want to focus on referrals. And it's great to know that, your customers support you and that they're referring you out. But it's not sustainable and it's not predictable. You can, augment your sales with that, and it should always be a part of it. But you need to, build out a disciplined sales structure and a disciplined sales team. And I remember early on, some of my quarterly goals was I'm going to, by the end of the quarter, I'm going to have a sales engine built. And it doesn't work that way. You need, maybe I'm going to have an ISR hired. Maybe I'm going to do these marketing campaigns, but building a sales engine, it takes a lot of time, and it's really, there's no end to it. Like, as you continue to grow more and more, you need to invest more in your sales and marketing. So another big breakthrough for us was definitely when we got more mature in the structure of our sales team. And we never got to a huge sales team. I always was largely involved in the outside sales role of it, but we had dedicated marketing, dedicated inside sales, had a disciplined process around COIs, so meeting with influential people that we've always had a big legal offering, like legal client base. So that helped too, being able to focus on others in the industry that sold to law firms, largely software vendors, managed print, some of those. So always had really good relationships with those and had a disciplined process around meeting with them on a regular basis. When you have a vertical, being largely involved in the associations, getting out to the events, building a brand in that vertical, thought leadership in that vertical. So while I never built out, a really big sales and marketing team, I had enough there, but was always very focused on having a brand that was a well-known brand in legal, that we were kind of one of two or three in Toronto managed service providers that specialized in law firms. So that helped us in our growth so much. And it really, my close ratio was much higher than the average MSP because I could always sell against a generic MSP, and that, in differentiating why, it's more important to go to somebody that's vertical focused. And then our lead gen too, it helps so much in warm lead gen. My warm 250 really was gold because these firms, they still come around that I've been speaking to for, 10 or more years through the associations and stuff. And the timing wasn't right. But if you're always there and you're always this, the thought leader and participating in these events, they will come around at some point. And when something goes wrong with the MSP they're with or whatever they're doing for IT, you just want to be the first one they call. And we were more times than not that MSP that we got reached out to.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. So kind of like when I'm thinking about, your sales process and your journey, most MSPs, myself included, try to build this business based on referrals. At some point, the referrals kind of dry up, or it's just not enough in order to be able to get that growth that you're looking for. Building the sales engine isn't something that happens overnight. Very intentional, tons of focus, tons of time. Building out that inside sales process, so you've got predictable new first time appointments every single week, huge to adding in predictable growth. The marketing and then the verticals specialization, I think are nuggets in there, right? And a lot of MSPs, us early on, like we just took every type of business. We had mortgage clients, we had construction clients, we had some legal, we had healthcare, we had all of this stuff. But once we were able to distill it down into
Yeah.
three key industries that we work with, we were able to take our marketing and then say, okay, well, here's all of our legal clients. Let's send them all of the legal, marketing, all of our manufacturing. Let's send them all the stuff around CMMC and all the other specializations. So that's awesome. Um, let's talk about, so you built this business, you had to partner with Mark. When did Vertex become Pace Technical, and what was that journey like?
Yeah, so 2022, we merged with another MSP that was very active in Winter Circle. So another Toronto-based MSP. We'd known each other for pretty much the entire time that the 9 years, or I guess at the time, maybe it was about 7 years that we were in Pierre. We were direct competitors in the beginning. We'd always end up on the same flights, flying out to Philly for a quarterly meeting and kind of look at each other with a sneer and just like, I know who they are.
Awkward.
And stuff. But then we'd end up at the bar, and guess what? We'd be hugging it out like best friends.
Yeah.
Okay, if you can't beat them, join them. We looked at it over the years, the possibility of coming together and merging into a new MSP or a single MSP. And, timing wasn't right. And then kind of at the end of COVID, post COVID, it started to make more sense. It was more and more difficult to hire good people, to retain your people. Everybody, was trying to poach your employees, and just good talent was hard to find and retain. And we looked and said, hey, if we come together, we'll actually have some capacity, some more redundancy in our roles. It'll kind of allow us to grow at a much faster rate than we can individually. And redundancy in the roles was a key thing. When we came together, we were both roughly, 25 or so employees. And in that size and organization, you get a lot of, people that have one person that has all the knowledge about certain things. And I don't need to tell you all the reasons why that's not a great idea, and it's out of necessity. But all of a sudden, it was like, hey, we can have backfill, and not only just to protect the business, but even to help our own people, taking the pressure off them and saying, hey, you've got a teammate now, you've got somebody else that can backfill. You can share this role, this responsibility. From our clients' perspective, we could now start to look at bigger clients and say, hey, we've got security and compliance, we've got redundancy in these roles, we've got a bigger skill set in our professional services team. So late 2022 is when we finalized coming together. We came together under the Pace name, and kind of came out at about 55 employees at that time.
That's awesome. For me personally, I had a front row seat to most of this. I knew the previous business owners of Pace really, really well, good friends with both of them, and got to watch two really, really great companies come together. It wasn't without its challenges, but you look at what you were able to accomplish, and I think it is something of magic, right?
I think some of the biggest challenges that just going into that and stuff, we were warned ahead of time. Like a lot of people said, oh, you're merging, look out, all these things are going to bite you. And we were like, it doesn't apply to us. We're so similar. Our pricing model is the same. We've been in Winter Circle. Our cultures are so similar. And I think where we got caught was almost most on the
we're so much better. We're so smart.
Yeah,
like
we know,
right? Like, no, that's not going to happen to us.
And I think one of the big things that got us was on the cultural side. I've mentioned that at Vertex, we were so focused on legal, and 90% of our clients were law firms. And at Pace, they were more, just a generic, not vertical specific MSP. And we had gotten used at Vertex to just this high level of, service that we had to provide to a law firm in response times, in projects, just in uptime, in after hour support, all these things that we just kind of took for granted that we were doing and didn't realize. And then merging together, it was a very different type of kind of just culture and way that the clients got serviced. So right out of the gate, all of a sudden, a lot of our legal clients said, why is it taking longer to get support? Why, are we not getting, these resolutions faster? Why is it? And I think that was one of the big things that got us, is none of us kind of took that into consideration at how much different it was to service a vertical like legal, and that we needed to continue to not only match that service quality, but you're under a microscope after you merge. want to see that you're, getting better and not worse. And it just started to catch up to us that, so we had to go through a lot of, just structural changes and service delivery changes to live up to, what our clients had gotten used to and what a law firm really is expecting from a managed service provider.
Yeah. I think, when you look at that vertical legal, you can't underestimate like the level of service that you have to deliver into that vertical specifically, and definitely opposed to most any other vertical, right? When you're dealing with people that are, they're looking at their time through a completely different lens. It's, hey, we're missing out on a billable opportunity here. We're billing at $2,000 to $3,000 an hour. They look at every service ticket
pressure.
and your response time just a little bit different.
The good news is if you can service legal well, every other industry is easy. And whenever we come across opportunities, with clients that weren't legal clients and prospects, they say, but don't you deal primarily with law firms? I say, yes, but good news for you. Like, you're going to get super fast response
You're
times,
welcome.
very high levels of security compliance, business continuity, backups, all these things that a law firm has to have out of necessity. We deliver to all of our clients because that's just the service model that we've developed and delivered.
That's awesome. Kind of looking at the big picture, the story behind Vertex and Pace, like, 2024 was a big year for you, right? You went through another transaction 2 years after the merger with Pace, ultimately rolled up to ITS. But I want to start like right before that. Like, what were you, from a planning objective standpoint, like how were you looking at this potential of exit and transition? And was there anything special that you were doing, really to prepare your business for sale?
Really, I mean, what we were trying to do is get back to some of those baseline requirements that I feel are really important to, if you're going to be acquired. Some of those KPIs being, net profit. You really want to be around, 20% plus net profit. Net profit ideally. You want to be having, 20% growth at minimum. 5% or less churn, somewhere around there. 60% recurring revenue. 20% NRR. Some of those KPIs we'd always developed over the years in Peer. That's really is what somebody acquiring you is looking for. So we'd gone through these changes through the merge and kind of restructuring the company and having to hone some of our service delivery areas to get back to that. We didn't feel we were at a position to sell to ITS at the time, but they were, reviewing our numbers and going through things, and they could see the trajectory that we were on and changes that we made. And really, they purchased us more on futures than trailing. So they could see that, hey, you've got a history, through your other MSPs of being able to do these things. And we see what changes you've made, and we see kind of your sales trajectory and other things. And they looked at us more from a balance of, the futures and the trajectory we had and some of the history too. So we were thinking we were just going to go through some preliminary, investigation on where we stood and things. And then they just looked at us and said, hey, you have a lot of potential, and we'd kind of like to make you an offer now to get ahead of it, not have you wait another year or two, which is what we thought we'd have to do. We just felt we needed a really strong trailing 12, and we were probably 10 months away from a good trailing 12.
Well, very smart on their part to look at this and take that bet on you and the partnership over there at Pace. I was able to see, the challenges that you went through the merger. It's funny, like everything comes back down to just that simple, basic math, as Miles says, and just simple logic. So it's basic math, simple logic that always just rules the day. And you all sat down together, you looked at the basic math again and said, okay, well, here's our plan forward. You executed on that plan. We can't take for granted that you had a really good sales engine at this point. Mike Segru was able to assist and bring in a ton of new deals. You were out there, you were selling, you were bringing deals to the table. But, from ITS standpoint, I mean, did they take a chance? Yeah, they took a chance, but they knew based on your track record that this was going to be something that was successful. So Did you look at any other buyers for the organization, or was it, you just knew that this was going to be the best fit for you?
We did over the years. So we looked at several over the 2 to 3 year period, and what interested us most with ITS was one that many of our peers had been acquired by them, and we got to have a front row seat to kind of what that looked like, and knowing that they were also buying high quality MSPs meant a lot to us. Wasn't looking to just exit the business. So I'm still on with ITS. My intention was to stay on, but I didn't want to be the one running the MSP. So I wanted a partner, somebody that was going to acquire us, that was going to integrate us into a bigger operation. And I would have different roles than being the CEO and running the MSP. I also wanted to know that we were going to be with an MSP that truly was an MSP and not somebody that kind of, doesn't know the industry, hasn't started and been born in the MSP space. So ITS, checked most of those boxes for us.
Yeah, and you talk about the opportunity for you post transaction. What was the opportunity like for the rest of the staff?
Yeah, it's opened up a lot of different positions that didn't exist, just like the merge did for us, where we had all of a sudden there were team lead roles, management roles that didn't exist when we were 25 people. Now, once we got to 50, 60, 70 people, it opened up a lot. At ITS now, I think we're somewhere about 550 employees. So there's all types of new opportunities. So part of it is that some of our departments get integrated into centralized regions, centralized management like NOC and security. So that's really great because now we had, in security, we had, 1.5, 2 people dedicated to security. Now they're part of a much bigger team and getting to collaborate with that. But it's opened up a lot of opportunity in management and team lead positions and other areas that we just wouldn't have been able to provide on our own.
Oh, cool. That's awesome, Tyler. So looking at, you made the decision, great decision for you and the partnership. Obviously, being with ITS, I think it's a fantastic decision for ITS to bring you on board. But what's life like for you now post transaction? Has anything big changed? Are you looking at the world and your role in a different lens? What's new with you?
Yeah, a lot's changed. A lot of the things that I wanted to have as the outcome from this, where I'm not solely responsible as the CEO for everything that goes wrong with clients or with employees or with any technologies and stuff. Having the protection of bigger departments and more people involved in helping. So things that I didn't like doing as the CEO, now there's, whole other teams and stuff that really take on a lot of those responsibilities. But at the same time, on the flip side, being the CEO and being able to just jump into action and change things, you're in a much bigger organization, whether it was ITS or any company. You've got 550 people and, you're thousands and thousands of users out there. There needs to be a much more structured process that involves a lot more people in making those decisions. So that's an adjustment. I've been so used to just jumping in and saying, all right, let's change it. Tomorrow we're doing it this way. Now you've got to, develop the process, get buy-in, make sure that what's it going to impact, where, you have a much better understanding in your own operation, what the impacts potentially could be. But now you're looking across a dozen different regions and stuff. So adjusting to that, what I've really liked in my growth and development here is that I'm doing different things and that I'm part of a much bigger, leadership team, and kind of just seeing how the dynamics in a company this size work, and being able to, find opportunities to add value in different areas. So really, not just focused in a couple of small areas, like being much more focused across a broader range of things. And just being able to see how you build and grow an MSP at scale like this has been exciting. So it's just something new that, after running an MSP for 20 years, there's always challenges and there's always things going on that keep you busy, but you start to burn out on it for sure. And you start to think, yeah, I'd like to try something different. So this has given me that opportunity. And it's been a 7 months or something. I feel like it's been 7 years. I can't even think back when it was just our MSP and just running it on my own. So it's been drinking through a fire hose scenario, but learning a lot and growing through it.
That's awesome. Thanks, Tyler. Looking back, is there anything that you would have changed? And it's funny, I'll ask this question to people that are here on the founder's journey, and most everybody wants to come out with the default response of no. There's nothing I would have changed because everything that I did got me to this spot. So understand that context of maybe that's not an appropriate answer, but could be a reality. Like looking back at the things that you would have done differently.
Yeah, of course. I mean, hindsight's 2020, right? I could have fast tracked so much of this and done things so differently from the beginning if I knew then what I knew now. But I'd say, a lot of what we've gone over in this discussion today, in the beginning, focusing more on the employees, building those business disciplines much earlier on. It took me a long time just flying by the seat of my pants and trying to make some money, and so many years of break even or losing money and just trying to keep the business afloat when all I needed to do was make some structural changes and just some disciplines that could have corrected that. It's, I guess, even through the merge and stuff, better forecasting out what the potential problems could be, taking more advice, I guess, on what could go wrong and how to overcome that earlier on. But I feel like, exactly like you just described, you kind of have to go through those things to learn and develop and grow. And that's how we end up in the place that we end up. I think the timing for us made sense with ITS. I thought we were still going to be a couple of years away. And then all of a sudden it was, hey, we were just looking at, what the future could look like and how to build our MSP to get in a better position to get acquired. And then it was like, hey, we're going to make you an offer that just makes more sense to do it now. I think that, it worked out in the best way for us, but, you got to go through the motions and just really understand, speaking to a lot of people, understanding, when the timing's right for you. It's a change personally, and it's a big change professionally, and probably one of the biggest things that are going to happen in our professional life. So you need to really, give it the consideration it deserves and put a lot of time and planning into it.
Awesome. If I could kind of distill that down, I really want people to be able to shave off a little bit of time in their lives, especially running an MSP. If we can save people a couple years of their life and they can get to where they want to get to a little bit faster, a little bit easier, I think that's awesome. The key things that I'm picking up, Tyler, number one, employees first. Treat your employees with respect, hold them accountable, make sure that the results are there. Two, a level of discipline. Put together your plans, execute your plans, don't deviate from your plans too much, right? Three, build a repeatable process to generate new clients. The sales process, super critical for you. Having new clients come in each and every month is a game changer. Peer, listen to the advice of others. Maybe don't question it so much. Gary always tells us, man, if we would have just listened the first time, it would have taken us 10 years instead of 20 years. And that's why he loves the True Peer group so much more than the Winner Circle group, because apparently they just listen. So that's awesome. Tyler, I appreciate you coming on today. If Tyler's story resonates with you, remember this freedom in your MSP is possible. It starts with the decision. It starts with the decision for you to change. It starts with the decision for you to implement, the processes that we're talking about. It starts with you, with the discipline that everybody has. It's not something that you're born with. It's something that can be trained. So thanks for joining us on the Founder's Journey today, Tyler. I appreciate you as a friend. I appreciate you as a mentor and as a colleague. Everybody that's watching, be sure to subscribe, drop a comment in the comment box. That's probably my most joyful thing at this point, is to seeing how people react to these stories. Share the episodes with another founder that needs to hear that. So Tyler Sanders, everybody, thank you, brother. Appreciate you being on today.
Thank you, man. It's been fun. Appreciate it.